Hello, everybody. Welcome to our video, and it's 1 week before Christmas. Can you believe it?
I can't. It's hard to believe how quickly the year has gone by. And you recently had a birthday.
I know.
So, hi. Today we are here to do our holiday wrap up video. We're here to provide some updates of what's been going on with us and talk about some theaters, shows we've seen, and other things. So, to start with the general life updates, first, talk about your Christmas pageant at church.
So, this past Sunday, my church, the Unitarian of Portland, had their annual nativity pageant, and I got selected to join the rest of the chorus for part of the excitement. So, we ended up doing three of our own anthems: Gabriel, Emmanuel, and we finished it off, which didn't have anything to do with the pageant itself, but the Hallelujah chorus was sure had some excitement near the end.
And I was one of the ushers at the Christmas pageant, and I helped hand the programs out, and I thought everybody did a really good job. So I can't wait to help with ushering next year. So the next thing I want to share is main humanities update. My mom and I were hired in July after we did our interview about our book that we wrote together to be speakers on the Maine Humanities Council Speakers Bureau. And starting sometime in January, we don't exactly know when we're going to get hired to speak yet, but I'm looking forward to going around to schools and community centers to talk about we want to go to school, the fight for disability rights. And I'm hoping to incorporate some poetry into our books, into our talk that we do on our book, kind of like what I did for my senior project when I was at Sauhegan. So I think it would be cool to do something similar like that again, to see how other people feel about how disability rights have impacted them, and similar topics to that. The next thing we wanted to talk about is vertical harvest and exciting about our job starting.
We're going to start off in February, March with the online training aspect, and then eventually we'll get into the physical labor of that work.
And also, I will do mobility training there to get used to getting around the new workspace. So, we are very, very excited to start this new job. I'm going to be doing something similar to what I did at the Plus Company, where I'm a receptionist, I answer the phones, I give tours. What are you going to be doing?
I'm going to be harvesting and distributing the microgreens.
So we wanted to talk about fall semester wrapping up for Double House and share some poetry that we wrote in our poetry workshop a couple of weeks ago. So, how would you say the semester has gone?
Well, since I took this class for the first time and got to know more of the people a little bit better, I really had a lot of fun. But mostly, I wasn't doing the poetry aspect. I was doing more like landscapes and some of my own imagination in drawings.
Yeah, so this year, I've been doing a lot of my same work that I've been doing with the quotes from different movies and TV shows with the multicolored lettering, and I'm also doing some landscape scenes like he did, and I'm gonna share three poems from the poetry workshop, starting with the first one. These poems don't have titles. Dreams of winter and most stars is growing with bright neon beauty. These ghosts and fool lizards in clouds and rumbling through glass. Musical magic of winter dreams. Quick changes for first acts of plays. No doubt about your magic and dreams. Did you want to share your first poem?
I'll share mine. This is actually from the Gremlins movie from 1984. Now, I have another reason to hate Christmas. What are you talking about? The worst thing that ever happened to me was on Christmas. Oh, God. It was so horrible. It was Christmas Eve. I was 9 years old. Me and Mom were decorating the tree, waiting for Dad to come home from work. A couple hours went by. Dad wasn't home. So Mom called the office. No answer. Christmas Day came and went, and still nothing. I found there was no Santa Claus.
I've never even heard of this movie. Is it good?
It's a classic, Gene. It's based on my theme when I was doing it one time, based on 1984 and my first birthday party.
Here's my second poem. Happy holidays to you, flames so white and skies of blue. As the snowflakes and cold winds blow, let the past be in the past and let it go. Let the festive lights shine bright and uh, make the music play all through the night. Happy holidays to you, flames so bright and skies so blue.
And before I get to my other poem for Christmas, I did one on a song that my parents sung to me on my first birthday, the Teddy Bears Picnic. Picnic time for teddy bears. The little teddy bears are having a wonderful time today. Watch them catch them on their wear and see their picnic on their holiday. See them really gab about. They love to play and shout. They never have any cares. At 6 o'clock, their mummies and daddies will take them home to bed because they're tired little teddy bears. Because they're tired little teddy bears.
Um, the third poem is Happy holidays to you, flakes so white and skies so blue. As the snowflakes and cold winds blow, let the past be. Oh, this is the same one I just read.
No, it's not, Janine. You didn't read that one.
Oh, as the snowflakes and cold winds blow, let the past be in the past and let it go. Delight fills my head cavity as I determine how to defy gravity. Happy holidays to you, flames so white and skies so blue.
Oh, I think you duplicated that, actually. You just put the snowflakes on there.
Yeah, I did three different versions of this poem. The other one is about a quote from Friends, which I forgot to bring that one out. So let me go get it, and then you
Okay,
can share
while
mine.
Janine gets her other poem out, here's one that I made up completely. Find a tree at the patch today. Carry it home in the car. Let your cares fade off during the trip. Sing Jingle Bells 12 bar. Find a room in your house. Line the tree up on its stand. Wire the base to give that glance. The love will be grand. Decorate the tree, light it up. Tinsel the bushes for the gleam. Your tree will have a holly jolly season, and your family will have their beam. Now, the day we were doing these kind of poems, I want to specify that we were kind of learning about poetry in the workshop, but also we were drawing random bars from people who came up with their own ideas. And so, with the seasons in hand and all that, we just fumbled them together to make different poetry. Like, for instance, when Janine was doing her couple poems where they said, let it go, I'll bet you know where that was from, right? Indina Menzel's famous song with Elsa and Frozen.
Okay, so that last poem I wrote, um, the last poem I wrote makes references to Frozen and Wicked, of course, because of Indina Menzel, and I can't find the original version of the second poem, the last poem that I wrote that I wanted to share, but I have it on my phone. I think I probably left it at Double House. Okay. Happy holidays to you, flakes so white and skies so blue. As the snowflakes and cold winds blow, please remember something that's important to know. As snowflakes fall from the skies above, perfectly decorated trees are not what Christmas is about. It's about being with the people that you love. And as this poem ends, I bet you can tell that Monica is one of my favorite characters from Friends. Happy holidays to you, flakes so white and skies so blue.
Not bad, Gene. So now I think after we've read our poetry, what's next?
We're going to talk about the philosophy questions we talked about in philosophy group that are related to Christmas. So we had philosophy group on December 7th at Novel Bookstore on Congress Street here in Portland with our friends Crystal and Michael. And the first topic that we talked about was who put the Christ in Christmas, and we talked about like the religious aspect of Christmas. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, legend has it, if you want to learn about the Christ of Christmas, then you just read the Bible. But come to think of it, that also brought up another question in my mind. Who was the original St. Nicholas?
It's a I thought it was set from Germany
I
or
thought it was Turkey.
Turkey, right? It's from Turkey, and it was about a guy named Nicholas who delivered toys to poor children. And there's also something related to like finding a pickle in a Christmas tree. I think that's the German tradition that I was thinking of. Um,
But another philosophy question that I made up was when you hear music in a Christmas song, do you really think that it sounds original, or do you think the way they twist it in pop culture is too commercial?
so as I've grown older, the reason why my favorite quote from a Christmas Friends episode is the one from the episode that Monica says, the one about being together with family is more important than decorated trees. The reason why that quote speaks to me so much is because as I've gotten older, I value being together with family and friends more than I do presents. Like when you're little, it's all about presents and what Santa brings to you. And like as we have both gotten older, I think we both can tell that we care more about friendship and being together with our friends and family than presents.
And we shared some of that tradition this past weekend when I took Janine to Wilmington, Massachusetts to visit many of her family members on her mother's side.
Right. Um, the next thing we wanted to talk about is the holiday book tier ranking. The holiday movie tier ranking. The holiday book tier ranking video is going to be on my channel, and I will link the video. I will link that video in the description below. So for S tier, this is classics. I've also thrown some TV show episodes in here from Friends and other TV shows that we have been watching. So for S tier, the first one is A Charlie Brown Christmas.
Yeah, Charlie Brown Christmas, we have known about that for as long as we've known the Peanuts strip. And this was the first Peanuts special that was made into television. And the interesting part about that was when you think of cartoons, you think of veteran voice actors who do various characters. But to start with, for the first time, there were actual children playing the Peanuts characters. At first, it didn't sell well, and think there was going to be a kind of whiplash, but it's classic, despite the sound not being too great and stuff. But it's just absolutely, really ones to sink your teeth into with your kids. And you can learn a little bit about characters when you think of the Christmas player or the nativity pageant.
Okay, so the first Friends episode I wanted to talk about in this tier ranking is from season 3. It's the 9th episode where they play Thanksgiving. They play football in the park on Thanksgiving Day while they're waiting for dinner to cook. And as I've said in previous videos where I've talked about analyzing Friends episode, the best part about this episode for me is the fact that they have a scenery change, because instead of being in the apartments or the coffee house, they're outside in the park. I'm not sure if it's Central Park or Bryant Park or just a neighborhood park that's near their apartment, but they're at the park playing football. And Joey and Chandler are trying to fight for the affection of this Dutch woman who they meet in the park. And the Dutch woman either doesn't really, she chooses Chandler, but then she realizes that both of them are being immature, so she ends up choosing no one. The next episode that I wanted to talk about in this tier is the one with the routine. This is the episode where Ross and Monica are on Dick Clark's New Year's Eve with the dance routine, and I love the dance routine that they do. And Courtney Cox has a video on her Instagram, which I have watched several times. It's her and Ed Sheeran doing the dance routine, and I just love watching that back again and again. The next episode that I wanted to talk about is the one with the holiday armadillo. This is the episode where Ross teaches Ben about his Jewish heritage in Hanukkah, and um and um and since he can't find a way to dress up as something related to Hanukkah, he dresses up as the holiday armadillo, which I never really understood the whole holiday armadillo thing and how that even related to Hanukkah. But then Chandler comes in dressed in as Santa, and then Joey comes in dressed up as Superman. I think Joey dressed up as Superman was a little bit overkill, though.
Now, the next classic we want to mention is How the Grinch Stole Christmas, original 1960s version. Because this is really one that has a classic animation and drawing style of Dr. Seuss. And my favorite part about it is the song Thorough Reverence Con, You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. Like that.
So we might as well talk about all three versions of How the Grinch Stole Christmas at the same time, just to get it over with. So the episode with Jim Carrey from 2000, we put that in the next tier down, which is we put that in B tier. And Jim Carrey is a classic comedic actor from the from the 90s and early 2000s. He was in Ace Ventura, he was in Dumb and Dumber. So I just like his take on the Grinch and the whole story of Grinch and Whoville. And then the most recent version of the Grinch that has Benedict Cumberbatch from Doctor Who voicing the Grinch. It's serviceable, but it's not as good as the classic cartoon from 1966 or the Jim Carrey version. Because like in the original cartoon of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Grinch is a villain, but in the more recent version, which 2018, like they really dumbed down his character so he was more child friendly. So instead of being a villain, he's more like a grouchy next door neighbor, kind of like the bald guy in the next movie we're talking about, It's a Wonderful Life.
And I'm glad you mentioned it, Gene, because I remember when we did It's a Wonderful Life back in 2012 in Milford, New Hampshire. One of my minor roles was the bald man during a scene where George and Mary were throwing stones while Mary was singing Buffalo Gals. And what I said was, kiss him to death instead of talk him to death. And then I said, youth is wasted on the wrong people.
I played Mrs. Hatch in It's a Wonderful Life, so I played a much older character, because obviously Mrs. Hatch is Mary Hatch's mother. So that was a really fun character for me to play, and I was also Mrs. Hatch again in 2020 when they did the radio version of It's a Wonderful Life during the pandemic. And I think my favorite character in It's a Wonderful Life is I don't know. Oh, Harry.
See, It's a Wonderful Life is really one of the real classic movies of all time for Christmas, because this really introduces George and Mary, how they met as kids, and then they came together again during a high school dance. And another one of my minor roles was the principal, which I was friendly about and everything. But if you never watched this movie, it really talks about the spirit of Christmas, but George going through his life with the help of Clarence, if he had never been born, is a really dark part about that. And we could all relate to that at one point or another. If we weren't born, how different and dark things would be.
I don't like to think about stuff like that. So the next movie that we wanted to talk to you guys about today is Meet Me in St. Louis. Now, this movie is a tableau of a Midwestern family who live in St. Louis, Missouri, going through the seasons, and it ends at Christmas time when the father announces that they're going to move because he got a new job, and this song is sung in the movie by Judy Garland to the little sister Tootie, who is really upset about moving and Santa not being able to find their house if they move. It's a beautiful song. I love that song. And when we were in Sauhegan Valley Chorus, we sang this song in I think 2015 or 2016, and Naomi Cohen sang the solo, and I think Kira Whitehead, or maybe it was Marley or Isabel. I can't remember which one of the Whitehead girls, but she was the one who was Tootie, but I can't remember which one it was because we haven't watched the video back in a long time. I think no, it was probably Isabel because Kira was the one who was the page turner with her mom, who was the piano player. Um, the next one is Mickey's Christmas Carol, which is a animated Disney cartoon from the 1990s, which I used to watch a lot when I was little. I don't know if you ever watched it, but
I never have.
I love that movie. It's just basically a Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, but with all the Disney characters. Ebenezer Scrooge is obviously Scrooge McDuck, and then Mickey Mouse is Bob Cratchit, Mrs. Cratchit is Minnie Mouse, Tiny Tim, I don't know, I guess that was supposed to be one of Mickey Mouse's nephews or something, and then Donald Duck is in there somewhere. I don't remember which character that he played, but he was one of the other characters. Oh, I think he was like Jacob Marley's ghost, maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's another version that's on the top ranking of this list by Disney, and it's the Muppet Christmas Carol. And in this version, Ebenezer Scrooge is portrayed by Michael Caine, who is a real talented British actor. And then this one is Kermit the Frog as Bob Cratchit, Miss Piggy as Emily, Gonzo is the storyteller, and so-called Charles Dickens. And I also like it with Fezziwig, almost Fozzywig, Fozzie Bear, because of the Rubber Chicken Factory. Plus, when you get the combination of the humor with the Muppets and the memory of Jim Henson and Richard Hunt, it really takes you back to times when you could relate to learning about the book yourself.
The final movie in this tier is White Christmas, which is a classic movie that's based on the Irving Berlin musical that we saw at Main Street Music Theater in July. What are your favorite songs from White Christmas?
I obviously like White Christmas because in the theater we saw it, we ended up singing along at the very end.
And then they had snow falling
Snow, and then snow, snow, snow. I like to walk the boo with my hand in snow, like that.
My favorite songs from White Christmas are Snow, White Christmas, Sisters, Count Your Blessings Instead of Sheep, and that's it. Um, Another classic movie. So there's a debatable Christmas movie. I don't think it's a Christmas movie. I think people think it's a Christmas movie because there is a song in it that mentions Christmas related things and is always on at Christmas time. I'm obviously talking about Sound of Music. Like we were talking about in our class, favorite Christmas movies, and a few people mentioned The Sound of Music. Do you think that The Sound of Music is a Christmas movie?
Not entirely.
I don't think so either. I mean, Christmas is Christmas items like snowflakes and sleigh bells and brown paper packages tied up with string. They're mentioned in the song My Favorite Things, but ultimately, it's kind of a depressing movie set during the Second World War. There's a love story between the teenagers, the one who goes to fight for Hitler, and then Captain von Trapp's daughter, Liesel.
Okay, can we go to the A tier now?
So A tier, the first movie we want to talk about is A Christmas Story.
And this one, the year that it came out was the year I was born, 1983. It was actually premiered in theaters just a couple days before I was born, actually. And this movie that was made by Metro Goldwyn Mayer dates back a story to like 1947 in Indiana, where this boy named Ralphie is with his brother and parents, and he talks about what happened when he wanted to get a tear gun for Christmas. But everybody was saying to him, "They'll shoot your eye out." But then there were other plots in there, like the kid getting stuck with his tongue on a pole, which was actually depressing, to say the least. And then a kind of a mean Santa Claus at the department store on Christmas Eve.
Another mean Santa Claus is the one in Elf that Buddy kind of beats up.
Right.
The next movie we wanted to talk about in this tier is A Year Without a Santa Claus. This is the 1960s Rankin Bass special, kind of like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman. What do you like the best about this one?
Well, I didn't watch it too much, but all I can say is it's just Rankin Bass and stop motion animation.
The next movie that we want to talk about is Annie. So, which version do you prefer? The original 1980s one with Carol Burnett, the 1999 one with Audra McDonald, Victor Garber, and Kristen Chenoweth and Alan Cumming, or the more recent one that came out in 2014 that had Cameron Diaz as Miss Hannigan?
Obviously, Janine, I think the better one was the more classic with Carol Burnett. But anyhow, anytime I would see Annie, it would end with what was that song?
I Don't Need Anything But You.
I don't need anything but you. And
So,
it's Christmas time during the Great Depression too. Plus, you get the orphanage, and Annie escapes, and then ends up being adopted by the Warbucks.
I have written a whole fan fiction series about what happens to Annie after she gets adopted. So, if anybody is interested in reading that, I can either link it into the description or message people privately with it, because I have really developed the characters of Annie and Molly specifically, and a sisterly relationship between them. My favorite songs from Annie are Easy Street, NYC, I Don't Need Anything But You, as we just mentioned.
And what about Tomorrow, Gene? That's a classic.
And yeah, I was just gonna say that. And Tomorrow. And the other song I really like is the one where Annie first gets to the mansion and all the house staff sings. I think I'm gonna like it here. Family Guy made a parody of that song in one episode. Did we watch that episode?
I think we remember that.
So the next thing I want to talk about is Friends season 10 episode 8, the one with the late Thanksgiving. This is the episode where Phoebe, Rachel, Joey, and Ross are all late to Thanksgiving dinner at Chandler and Monica's apartment. And obviously, Chandler and Monica are really upset at them for being late. But the episode ends happily because they find out that they're going to be adopting the twins from a woman in Ohio named Erica, who is played by Anna Faris. And I just love the ending of that episode because it brings the storyline together about Monica always wanting to be a parent, how she's pretty much the parent the parent of the friend group, always like being motherly to everybody and stuff. The next TV episode I wanted to talk about is a episode of Gilmore Girls I recently watched with Kathleen called The Bracebridge Dinner. And this is a Christmas episode from season 2 where they have this big fancy dinner at the inn, and they have to basically put it on themselves with the staff at the inn because the performers get snowed in at the airport in Chicago and can't make it. So I just love that story line. I think it's so much fun because they're putting on a theater show, and as people know, Matt and I are performers, so I love any TV episode that focuses on a performance. The next movie that we wanted to talk about is Olaf's Frozen Adventure.
Well, it's only a half hour mini movie. And this is the one where Olaf the snowman from Frozen goes to people's houses to try to please Anna and Elsa about the true meaning of Christmas.
And he goes around door to door, sharing, asking people what their favorite holiday traditions are, because he's trying to come up with a tradition for Anna and Elsa. But then at the end, he realizes that he himself was the tradition, because in all of the years that Anna and Elsa were separated from each other, they would draw pictures of Olaf and slip them under the door back and forth to each other. So we would like to know what your holiday traditions are, whether you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Diwali or whatever you celebrate. Please share with us what your favorite holiday traditions are in the
And
comments.
we have two more classic movies that we watch annually that we made onto the A tier. And one of them is the movie Elf.
Oh yeah, we skipped Elf. I'm so sorry. So Elf came out in 2003 and it has Will Ferrell in it. Um, Zoe Deschanel from New Girl is also in it as Jovi, who works as a holiday employee at the store Gimbals, which is a competitor to Macy's. I think Gimbals used to be a store, but they closed in the late 80s or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, who are your favorite characters from Elf?
Will Ferrell as Buddy the Elf, where he tries to bring the spirit of Christmas to, especially when he finds his father who's on the naughty list. And he's just really almost narcissist about his job and money, doesn't care.
Yes, I would say that he's a narcissist for sure. My favorite characters in Elf are Buddy, Jovi, Santa Claus, and
What about Bob Newhart as the elf?
right, I was gonna say him. And then also, yeah, that's it. So, oh, the newscaster Charlotte. I like her.
Mm-hmm.
She would probably be my dream role in that movie, or maybe the mother Emily. Um,
And our final tier ranking for A is the Polar
wait, I
Express.
didn't say what my favorite Elf the Musical songs are yet.
Oh.
So we saw Elf the Musical a couple of times back in 2017. One time was in Peacock Players, and one time was in Riverbend Youth Company. We saw them back to back in the same weekend, which was a lot of fun. So my favorite songs from Elf the Musical are Happy All the Time, I'll Believe in You, which is sung by Michael and Emily about how they want Walter to spend more time with them at Christmas. And it's basically them saying a Christmas wish to Santa about wanting Walter to spend more time with them. And then Never Fall in Love with an Elf, which is the love song that Jovi falls in love with, sings about falling in love with Buddy. And then Sparkle Jolly Twinkle Jingly, which is like the song that the all elves in the North Pole sing when they're making it twice. We watch Elf every single year. It's one of our favorite Christmas movies, but it holds deeper significance more recently because there are 3 actors from it who have passed away in the past couple of years. James Caan, who played Michael Hobbs, um, Bob Newhart, who played
Well,
Papa Elf,
Papa Elf.
and
And as their Santa Claus.
and Ed Asner, who plays Santa. The final movie in A tier is The Polar Express.
And that is based on the book by Chris Van Allsburg, which we read when we were kids. And it's a magical journey for this little kid to go to the North Pole and to believe in Santa Claus.
So this story is about a boy. I don't know if he has a name or not, but basically he's at the age where he doesn't believe in Santa anymore. So he basically goes on a trip on this magical train to the North Pole, and Tom Hanks voices the train conductor and a few other characters in this movie. And then there's a song that Steven Tyler from Aerosmith sings when they're at the North Pole, called "Rockin' on Top of the World." And my other favorite songs from Polar Express are Hot Chocolate, When Christmas Comes to Town, and Spirit of the Season.
And what about Believe by Josh Groban?
And Believe, yes, and Believe. Okay. The first movie in the B tier is Christmas Chronicles. This was a movie that was on Netflix a couple of years ago that had Kurt Russell in it as Santa Claus. And it's basically something goes wrong at the North Pole, and Santa Claus entrusts two kids to help him out with getting things back to normal. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. I haven't watched it since I first started, but I'm hoping to see it again at some point next year.
And we mentioned the 2000 version of Grinch Stole Christmas. So let's go on to another Rankin Bass classic here, Frosty the Snowman.
What do you like the best about Frosty the Snowman?
Well, unlike other Rankin Bass specials, this one did not have the stop motion. It was the traditional cell animation. It's just basically the kids after school building a snowman, and then they find a magic hat that comes to life for Frosty. Puts it on and he says, "Happy birthday!" But this magician ends up being the antagonist because he just wants his hat back, even though Frosty and Karen go to the North Pole, hoping that Frosty would not melt.
The next TV show episode I want to talk about is another Gilmore Girls episode that I recently watched with Kathleen. It's called A Deep Fried Korean Thanksgiving. In this episode, Lorelai and Rory are triple quadruple booked for Thanksgiving. They go to Thanksgiving at Lane's house first, and she's Korean, so they have like a lot of vegetarian dishes at their table and turkey motive tofu, which Phoebe from Friends would probably really like because she's also vegetarian. Then they have Thanksgiving dinner at Suki's house where they're deep frying everything, including the turkey, which sounds really gross and overly fattening.
It is.
And then they go to the diner to have Thanksgiving with Luke and Jess, and then they go. The last stop is Lorelai's parents' house. So I was getting dizzy watching that episode because I couldn't understand how they could eat that much food without getting sick.
It is a sickening experience.
Especially with the deep frying of the turkey. That just sounds really gross. The next movie we wanted to talk about in this tier is Last Christmas, which is a movie we recently watched that came out a couple of years ago that has Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones in it. What did you like the best about Last Christmas?
I like how it was set in Britain, and it was based on this employee who really is starting to go downhill on herself in her life until she feels like she finds a customer that comes into her store.
So this story is a little bit sad because um the girl has health issues because she's suffering from side effects from a heart transplant, and she finds out that um like the guy who is her love interest is technically the ghost of the person who got her heart. His name is Tom. What was the girl's name in the
I
movie?
forgot.
I forgot too. But basically, this the title of this movie comes from the classic Christmas song from the 1980s by Wham, which is called Last Christmas, and it ties together nicely because the senior center that Amelia Clark's character volunteers at has a Christmas talent show, and the song that they sing at it is Last Christmas. So I thought that was a cool way to tie in the song that is the movie is based on.
And next, we want to mention an episode of Magnum PI
Called Operation Silent Night.
Because on this episode, which aired around Christmas, the gang is heading to a party by helicopter, but something goes wrong with it, and they are forced to land on a deserted island. And what happens there, while they were trying to survive with the latest, they didn't realize they were being attacked. And when you think of Hawaii in December, then you should not forget about the day that lived in infamy, Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. But anyway, Tom Selleck really is a big influence on his own character and how he made the TV show what it was. And Janine says that she has read his memoir Tom Selleck before, and I got
Ooh.
that at the library today.
So
And
we're gonna discuss Tom Selleck's memoir You Never Know in a video that will probably be out after Christmas. We may discuss it in our December and January wrap up video if we have the book finished by then, but if not, it will be reviewed in a separate standalone video where we just review the book together and don't talk about anything else. Um, the next movie we wanted to talk about is Miracle on 34th Street. We have seen both the original version from the 1940s and the version from the 1990s with Mara Wilson from Matilda and Dylan McDermott from Three to Tango,
and also Elizabeth Perkins, who was Wilma Flintstone in the live action Flintstones movie.
which I've never seen. But I know that John Goodman from Roseanne is in that movie too, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you like the best about the Miracle on 34th Street movie?
It really is a classic where you think about the Macy's parade and Santa Claus at the very end. But it is really based on the fact that Marwis's character, would she believe in Santa Claus?
Yeah, and I like the scene where Santa Claus is on trial and all the kids are going to court in Santa's defense saying that they believe in Santa and that this guy who is acting on the role of Santa at the convenience store is not actually crazy. Um so who do you like which version do you like better of Miracle on 34th Street?
I would prefer the 47 version.
Oh really? I like the 1996 version better with Mara Wilson.
Now, the next two tier rankings are two of the last of the Rankin Bass series, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
What do you like the best about these animated specials?
Again, these were stop motion in the 60s. And by the way, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer reappeared for the first time in quite a while on its original network when it aired in 1964, NBC. And that story really is a combination of the classic song with Rudolph's nose and him and an adventure with Hermie, the misfit elf who wanted to be a dentist.
So the underlying plotline of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is basically that Rudolph and Hermie the elf are bullied by their peers, and it's a nice story about how you can overcome being bullied. And that's what I like the best about that story, because as a kid I was bullied too, and I'm sure you must have been. Were
A,
you?
a little bit. Plus, I also like when they meet up with Cornelius the Climber and they go on a trip to the island of misfit toys.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Santa Claus is Coming to Town, even though it's based on another song that we all sing as children and we try to behave at Christmas time, Santa Claus, when he in his youth with red hair, I really wasn't as crazy about that and as I was with Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph.
Me neither. I agree with you. The next movie we wanted to talk about is one we recently saw a couple of weeks ago. It is the movie adaptation of the book by Barbara Robinson, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. What did you like about this movie?
I really like how the Harrimans were really these troublesome children who were orphans because they didn't have parents.
They were pretty much abandoned by both
They
of
were
their
abandoned, right?
Yeah, basically. And
But they turned it into the most unlikely circumstances, a real nativity pageant for everyone to see in their hometown.
mhm. Yeah. So this movie was also turned into a play and musical, and we've seen it a couple of times at the Boys and Girls Club in Milford, and then one time at the Derry Opera House. And my favorite songs from the musical version of Best Christmas Pageant Ever are. Oh, I thought I wrote those down. I guess not. Hey, Mrs. Bradley, and Maybe. Um,
Okay, we have one more B tier ranking.
the final B tier movie ranking is a mini special for Christmas from Toy Story called The Toy Story That Time Forgot. We watched this a couple of weeks ago on ABC. What did you think?
It was all right, but I didn't really care for as much as the original Toy Story movies.
How would you rank this with all of the other Toy Story movies that we have seen?
This one for Christmas, I would have to rank low, like Toy Story 4.
Okay, so this is how I would rank. Toy Story 4, Toy Story That Time Forgot, Toy Story 3, Toy Story 2.
Okay. We talked about this before too.
So for C tier, the first TV show episode I want to talk about is the season 4 episode, the one with the girl from Poughkeepsie, where Phoebe writes the holiday song for everybody as a present, and Ross is obsessed with this girl who he saw at the train station, who he almost like missed his connecting train to upstate New York because he was obsessed with meeting this girl and then he falls asleep on a train again. It's a stupid plot. I really don't like that episode except for Phoebe's song. The next Friends episode I wanted to talk about that I'm not the hugest fan of is the one with the rumor. This is the season 9 episode for Thanksgiving where Brad Pitt guest stars as Rachel, Monica, and Ross's high school classmate Will, who, and it is discovered in this episode that um Ross and Will formed this club in high school called I Hate Rachel Green Club, kind of like Fight Club, but for people who hate Rachel Green. And basically, they made this group so they could tease Rachel. And I just don't like that. The only redeemable part about this episode is the scene where Monica is going around her room introducing Will to her other friends, and Phoebe's reaction is the most genuine one. She's like thinking, "Oh my god, he's so hot," and like I feel the same way because Brad Pitt was one of my many celebrity crushes in middle school and high school, and that's why I love that episode of Friends so much. But other than that, the plot is really not likable. The next thing we want to talk about is Love Actually. So this is a Christmas classic movie from it's a rom-com from the early 2000s where um it's like different short vignettes about certain characters. My favorite scene is the one with the little boy Sam who is trying to um confess his feelings for his crush Olivia, who is in the same music performance as he is. He plays the drums and she's the lead singer of the band. that that scene is that vignette is very cute, but the thing that would not fly today, so to speak, is the scene where he's chasing after Olivia in the airport before she gets on the plane. Like, I think if Love Actually was made today, that scene would not work because of security being so tight at airports. The least What's your favorite who's your favorite character in Love Actually, by the way?
Well, I do like them all equally.
My least favorite vignette in that movie is the one where it's the one with the late Alan Rickman from the Harry Potter movies and Emma Thompson, where Emma Thompson finds a gift that Alan Rickman's character is giving to his coworker, and she thinks the gift is for her, but it's not, and she gets really upset. And I have seen a behind the scenes video from this movie on Miss Mojo, and they said in that video that Emma Thompson's reaction in that movie was genuine because around the time the movie was being filmed, she had gotten a divorce from the prolific director of film Kenneth Branagh, who is known for the Hamlet adaptation. So that is why I don't like that movie. The final movie or mini show we wanted to talk about is something you put on here. So I give full disclosure to you to talk about this because I have never watched it. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Now, where I came from in my mid year of elementary school, my parents discovered on Comedy Central this program called Mystery Science Theater 3000. And it's about where Joel Robinson gets transported up by the evil Dr. Clayton Forrester into space, and he has to make his robot friends and watch some really bad, low rated movies. And when it comes to Christmas time in this one, both Dr. Clayton Forrester and TV's Frank put on this classic Fedora and Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. This was made the same year as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer,
Oh, I
1964.
didn't know that.
But who stars in this is some relatively unknowns for mostly, but I do remember one who played a Martian who later went on to play a minor role, Uncle Wally on Sesame Street.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's real interesting.
But the plot of this movie is really kind of makes you wonder what if, and makes you just laugh with the reaction if you watch it on MST3K. But you can watch the whole movie in its entirety alone if you watch it on YouTube yourself and see what you think. But wait, I'm not finished. But in this plot, it's where the Martians discover what Christmas is all about when the man in charge on Mars finds his children watching Earth programs, especially Santa Claus. They want to find out what's keeping them so glued onto their TV. So they discover who Santa Claus really is and they transport him from the North Pole to their planet. So it's kind of strange and weird, but it would make you laugh.
So Phantom Strider mentioned this movie in one of his videos he made about like the top 10 worst movies he's ever seen. If I find that video, I will be sure to have Matt link it in the description so you guys can watch it. And if you're familiar with Santa Claus versus the Martians, please leave your thoughts about that movie in the description because I have never seen it myself. So we mentioned the Christmas episode of Magnum PI in this tier ranking. What do you think of season 4 as a whole?
For the whole, I would think season 4 really is a good kind of high ranking period of the show. It started off with the first episode where Magnum was just stranded at sea and it was a little bit boring, but more of the episodes were more action packed and really they have a nice team, especially John Harmon as Higgins.
Yeah, and I like his female lady friend, Agatha.
Right. Now, before we end this video, Jean has a couple of playbills that she would like to describe. And this past weekend, when we were seeing some
Wait,
entertainment.
we were talking about Carol Burnett show next. I thought that's what I have written down.
Oh, right. The Carol Burnett show, we started watching this weekend. And I picked an episode that day in early 1975 where Burnett Peters was guest star. It started off with the family, which I really wanted to introduce to Janine because.
We have been watching Mama's Family, and I think that show is really funny. So
But when you look at Vicki Lawrence playing Mama, this is where she really comes into character and how she makes her family with her daughter Eunice and Eunice's husband.
and I really like their dynamic. Um, so yeah, as Matt was just saying, we saw 2 productions this past weekend, and the first one was Into the Woods, put on by Portland Players. Into the Woods is basically a modern retelling of classic fairy tales. Characters from Cinderella, Jack and the Beanstalk, Rapunzel, and I think that's it. Because I don't know what fairy tale the baker and his wife are supposed to be from. Are all mentioned in this.
So we shared at the Portland Players this past Friday night.
Who are your favorite characters?
My favorite characters are the ones who play Cinderella and Rapunzel and the baker's daughter. Plus, I like the giant's voice.
My favorite characters were Cinderella, who is played by Isabel Grignon, the witch, who is played by Rachel Lodstein, the baker's wife, who is played by Kelly Mosher, Rapunzel's prince, who is played by Summer Pratt, and Jack, who is played by
Jeff McNally.
Jeff McNally. What were your favorite songs in Into the Woods?
Let me see that. I really liked the prologue Into the Woods. I also liked Agony.
That's one of my favorites too. My favorites were um um the prologue, First Midnight, Giants in the Sky, Agony, On the Steps of the Palace, Witch's Lament, and No One is Alone.
And the other thing that we saw this weekend was at Deering High School in Portland, where Jean's sister Kristen works as a 9th grade social studies teacher. But you know about the Adams Family if you follow their show with their theme song and the characters. We saw this because one of our friend's daughters was one of the ancestors, and her name is Isabel Petrozzini.
What were your favorite What were your favorite songs in Adam's Family?
I liked To Be an Adams, and I also liked What If, and also Crazier Than You.
My favorite songs in the Adams Family are The Moon and Me, Pulled, Full Disclosure, and as you just said, Crazier Than You. And notable performances in this show were by Uncle Fester, who was played by Zachary Lee, uh, Wednesday Adams, who was played by Rose Baldock, Grandma Adams, who was played by Claudia Muaka, and Alice Beinecke, who is played by Daphne Zager. So, congratulations to all of the people in both of these shows on phenomenal performances.
Well, Into the Woods is not over yet for this December. We have one more weekend to go. And the last things we want to discuss before we end this video are we had a couple of passing aways in recent weeks. And one was one of the Sherman brothers who really was a big role into getting Mary Poppins into the theaters. And it's
He died a couple of months ago. He didn't die very recently, but I know recently you were saying that Chuck Woolery died. Did you want to talk about that a little?
I do. First of all, but this was a 60th anniversary special that Gina and I were watching on ABC
About Mary
about
Poppins,
Mary
yeah.
Poppins, about the background, about the author, how very tough she got along, especially when we were seeing Saving Mr. Banks.
Right.
But one of my favorite game show hosts, named Chuck Woolery, passed away unexpectedly in November around Thanksgiving,
Close to your birthday.
close to my birthday. And he was 83 years old, and he was known for such game shows like Love Connection, where this was where you could meet your date, chose a three, and then have some money to pay the tab and see if you belong to each other. But other game shows I was more familiar with were Scrabble, where you had those tiles and clues to give away to try to make the letters into tiles. It was a real big hit with one of those NBC game show hour blocks that used to be around in the late 1980s. I could talk about those anytime if you'd ever ask me what game shows I would remember, because I call on with them watching it with my grandparents when they were watching over me during the day and back then. Then I remember when they were even on repeats on USA Network and GSN. But Chuck Woolery, you really had good influence, and he was also a former songwriter, and he had one big one-hit wonder during his time before he was actually game show host, or even played a role on New Zoo Review.
Really? What was the song?
I forget the name of it, but if you can tell me what the song was, if you ever follow Chuck Woolery, just leave it in the comments below. But that's all, basically all we have. We want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and be very safe with your family and spend time whoever that might be. So
We will be back the day after Christmas with a book haul video to share with you guys all the books that we got for Christmas. So have a great holiday, and we will see you guys next week.